really love it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Scott, this one is for you. This is from Mark from Santiago, Chile. Mark's given us a bunch of questions over the past. He said, Peter, on many occasions, you have mentioned Hawaii's high cost of living combined with often low salaries. As such, is it considerably more difficult to qualify for a home loan? Are banks more stringent with respect to the conditions they impose, like a higher down payment or higher interest rates, etc.? Is it easier or harder to get a loan depending on which island you want to live on? So this is almost like a statewide kind of a question. But Scott, why don't you get the ball rolling on that? How does Hawaii, I think, what Mark's really, I believe what Mark is really asking for is, how does Hawaii's loan qualifications differ from what you might find on the mainland?
In a sense, no. Most of the loans that people are going to do here are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guideline loans, which are set by more or less the government, but basically by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So that's a nationwide, more or less standard for how the loan has to be structured. So in that sense, no. Since COVID, it is a little more difficult to qualify for loans, just in the sense that banks want to make sure that your current employment is going to continue and you're not going to be adversely affected, and you close on your property or your loan, and then the next week you're either out of a job or you've had a pay cut. So they're doing more checks and balances throughout that process, and they're scrutinizing things closer and more stringent. But in general, the loan guidelines are similar to what you would get on the mainland. If you're going portfolio loan, from a statewide standpoint, island to island, they're not really going to vary much unless it's down to the type of product you're buying. If you're buying a condotel, that's a completely different real estate product. So there's a whole different kind of loan package for that that's much more stringent, because the loan is more, that type of property is more risky.
Great. Thanks, Scott. I'm going to just open the mic up. Dylan or Heidi, do you folks have anything you want to add to what Scott's already said?
No, I mean that's pretty much right on. I mean, it depends on what time in history you're comparing it to, right? I mean, if you're comparing it to the and I think we've mentioned this before, and this is another reason why it isn't a good speculation that there's going to be a pop in a real estate bubble is the last time this happened back in 2007, 8, 9, when there was a crash. That was a big contributing factor, was very lenient lending guidelines. And I was a product of that. I bought my first house when I was 24 years old in college, going to college in the GI Bill with no income, and they gave me they gave me a loan for $250,000 to buy a house. And there's no way in today's world you could do that, because they fixed most of those issues with the lending guidelines. And so since 2009, everything has been pretty stable. So the drive up in prices and costs isn't really caused by artificial lending. It's not an artificial lending bubble where people who shouldn't be getting mortgages are. And so it's not any harder than it's been in the last
Heidi,
10 years.
Is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I had a couple things to mention. One is in working with buyers that are relocating to Maui, it's really important to work with the lender and have a good plan, because if you're newly retired or changing jobs or changing industries, sometimes those things can make it more complicated to qualify for a loan. And it doesn't really have anything to do with being in Hawaii. It's just the change of job status. For independent contractors, lenders often want to see 2 years of tax returns in your new business, even if you were in the same industry before on the mainland. So it's something to plan ahead with. Now, the other thing I see with financing here is it's important to understand there's two parts of getting qualified for a loan. One is the borrower, that's you, that's your credit, your financial capability. But two is the property. Maui, especially in the condo market, Maui has a lot of unique properties and situations. There's properties that allow vacation rental. They might have timeshare. Does the owner own a large percentage of the development? Is there leasehold? Is there unpermitted improvements? I mean, there's all these unique aspects, and it's often to your advantage as a buyer and also to your negotiating advantage in presenting a strong offer to work with a local Hawaii lender who's familiar with the properties we have here and can tell you up front, okay, for this property, you definitely need to put 25% down because of this. And that can just save you time in the end when you're going to make your offer.
Thank you, Heidi. You know, as you were going through this, I was wondering, because were you like a really good student in college? Because you come to these things like really prepared. You've just got it down. So it makes me think that you were like a really good student in college.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, but no, but with the lending, I deal with that so much, and it's so important. I mean, well, to me personally, when I have a buyer that's going into contract, I mean, I want it to be successful. And I do see a lot of other people going out there and making offers on properties here and going 30, 45 days into it. And then the lender says, oh, sorry, I can't lend on that property. So I certainly do everything I can upfront to, make sure people are successful.
You've seen enough hearts broken due to it falling out at the lending level. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, thanks, Heidi, for being. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, one comment on that is it's more beneficial for you to use a local lender than to use a mainland lender, because local lenders, for one, when you're in a competitive market like this, and if you have two contracts that are the exact same, but one's using a local lender and one's using a mainland lender, we're going to be more likely to go with the person that's using that credible local lender because they understand Hawaii real estate. That fail ratio, we have a much higher fail ratio with mainland lenders because they don't understand the Hawaii market.
Yeah, that's a great point. We had a quick one.